Bless you both, my friends. I hope this finds you well. Boy, do I feel like the prodigal son. I'm so sorry that I've been quiet for so long. There is massively, of course, a reason why. VE Day and Easter. Easter was just crammed in. It took a lot out of me. And then VE Day, again, I had a service with the town council that took a load of work. It went off without a hitch. I can't begin to stress to you just how happy I am about that. Now I know I made a promise, didn't I? My testimony and things. I feel like I've bigged it up a bit now, and people are going to be thinking this is pants. So have a listen, okay? I've pre-recorded it, so I recorded it a while ago. This is just the intro I'm doing now. Have a listen, see what you think, okay? Let me know, and here we go. Enjoy. Today I want to share with you my testimony. Now, in no way, shape or form have I rehearsed this. I've got no notes. This is just my story. Naked as it is. Again, please feel free to reach out via the email address that will be on the screen, one of the sides. I think it's this one. And if you'd like me to share your testimony, please do email it to me. It could be as long as you need. 1,000 words, 10,000 words. You'd like it anonymized or you want me to keep it as yours, I'm happy to do that. Because I think storytelling has got a great power. It's one of my great tools in ministry is I tell stories. And there's no story quite like the truth. Oh, so often, those stories are the ones that beg a belief. They're the ones that, well, they're the ones that often seem stranger than fiction. And so, my friends, without further ado, let's wet the old whistle. And let's begin. I want to take you back in time to 2014. Early 2014. Actually, I think it's closer to Christmas 2013, if I'm honest. I am a school caretaker. I walk the corridors, put the chairs away, I fix stuff that kids broke, I'm a school caretaker. On top of that, I'm also working part-time as a community centre caretaker. You see, unlike a lot of my colleagues in ministry, and this is no way, shape or form is this a slur, just I didn't come into the priesthood from the middle class. I didn't come at it from a career. I had zero savings. I still don't, I work paycheck to paycheck, which is a big thing with working class priests. I actually read a report the other day from the Church of England that a friend of mine sent me, and it's very similar to that. Very similar things in there. But anyway, I digress. It's about 2013, late 2013, say sort of October, November. I'm asked if I can do a full-time post at Oakdale Comp. Now, those of you that know this area will know the old Oakdale Comp. Of course, it's gone now. They demolished it, not my fault, but they demolished it to make way for a super school. There's now a super school that amalgamated it. And I'm there for, I think it was 3 months. I think it was a solid sort of 3-month contract. And whilst I'm doing my job, I begin at, I think, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not knocking off until sort of 4 o'clock. And I start to notice my foot hurts. My left foot hurts a lot. Now, years before, I dropped a weight on it in the gym, and I thought I'd broken something, and I'd never bothered getting it fixed. And it developed a lump. Now, there's a lump on my forehead that I've had ever since I was a little kid. I came over my handlebars and face planted the road. Gravity will always win, kids. Pay attention. So I thought the lump on my foot was going to be just like my little rhino horn on the middle of my forehead, in that it's just always been there. I've got a very lumpy head. Not so. As I was working these long days and then coming home and doing the community centre also, I was finding my foot was hurting a lot more, and the lump rather, was getting quite pronounced. So, of course, I'm talking to Mrs. Viking Vicar about it, and she's adamant there's something wrong with me, and one of these, unless it's hanging off, it don't really need looking at. Behind my back, she actually makes me a doctor's appointment, and I keep saying to her, I can't go. I just don't have time. I can't go. So she waits until the day after my contract expires at the school, and I'm wished all the best and sent off into the great wide ether. She has me up at the doctor's. Now, my doctor was a cracking young lad. He was a brilliant young doctor. I've got all the time in the world for him. He moved on, and I think he ended up working for Cardiff City FC, which that's pretty cool if you're a fan, you know. He took one look at my foot and was like, not good. Let's go and send you for some scans, some tests. I think you've got gout. Now, you may not be able to see it from all the videos that I've done, but I'm actually quite a big lad. And so gout for a larger built gentleman like myself is not uncommon. So, of course, I was only 30 years old at the time, so I'm thinking, hang on a minute now. Gout? Okay, I didn't eat much fruit and veg at the time. That's changed, but didn't eat much fruit and veg at the time. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. His boss, who was actually my named GP, was an older doctor, were an absolute hero. He took one look at me and sort of thought, no, there's something not quite right here. And so the two of them decided to investigate their own separate theories. And so the younger doctor decided to sort of look at the gout thing. The elder doctor thought there might have been something else going on, and so he sent me for further scans, further tests. Fast forward a month or so, and I'm in the Royal Gwent, and I'm at a clinic there, a bone specialist clinic. Now I'm thinking this is I've done a bit of Googling. Now, I know they say you should never ask Dr. Google, and they're absolutely right, you shouldn't. Because Dr. Google is one of these that no matter what you put in there, Dr. Google will tell you you're dying. Usually in the most hideous, horrible way possible. You may say, I have a headache because you've been out working all day and you haven't stopped for a drink and it's a hot day. Gee, classic case of dehydration. Dr. Google will say you've got brain-eating amoebas. It's the way it is. So, I'd done a wee bit of research, and I'd realised that if it's a cystic or basically like a fibrous growth, it could be shaved down. Essentially, they'd send me to a carpenter, they'd open my foot up, plane the bone down, and send me home, back on my feet in a fortnight. The consultant there, I go for my scans, I get put through the I think it was the donut, that one. I think, radioed, microwaved, all these tests they run, prodded, probed, etc. And I'm sitting in the waiting room waiting to go back in, and the doctor calls me, and so I went in, and he asked me if my family were with me, if I had any family with me, which I thought was weird, because I was waiting for the good news, you know? So the doctor says, well, if you've got any family with you, can we have them? So, of course, at the time, I'd only got 2 children, my eldest and my middle. My middle was a babe in arms. He was tiny. I think he was a year old. And he said to this nurse, could you take the children outside for a moment? And almost instantly, Mrs. Viking Vicar sort of grabs my hand, and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute now. This ain't right. And he sits down and he says these words to me, and he says, Viking Vicar, didn't say that bit, don't worry. He goes, I'm sorry, it's cancer. Those of you watching this who have heard those words will know exactly what I mean. Those of you who haven't, I pray you never do. Because you hear those words, I'm sorry you have cancer, And all of a sudden, the colour drains from the world. And it's a surreal sensation. Everything suddenly becomes grey. And I was holding my wife's hand, and I couldn't feel the warmth of it anymore. I could just feel her hand there. There was a numbness and a shock to me. And I remember sitting there, and I've always had it, and it drives Mrs. Viking Vicar nuts, but there's this ability I've got. It's like a little guy who sits back there taking notes, so the rest of me can freak out or can react however I need to, but that little bit of me that takes the notes feeds back later. And he says to me, "I'm terribly sorry you've got cancer." And the colour starts to drain from the world. And all of a sudden, that little voice starts taking notes. You know, listen to him, listen to what the man's got to say. Freak out later, listen to what he's got to say. And so the doctor starts telling me what's going to happen. And my first thing I said to him was, chop it off. Chop my leg off. Because, of course, it was localised to the foot. Chop my leg off. And he said, and I'll never forget it, he said, "If it were up to me, I'd have you in surgery tomorrow. But we have to try and save your foot." So he sent me to the Royal Orthopaedic in Birmingham for treatment there. And we'll get to that shortly, but when you get told those words and they send you out into the big wide world, everything suddenly looks different. I mean everything. The birds sang. The birds singing is suddenly much louder. Every hug from a loved one suddenly carries a weight to it. I walked out of that hospital and I started thinking, oh my gosh, what about my kids? They were 4 and 1 respectively. Well, not just under. One was just under. The eldest was 3 at the time, 3 and like 11 months. And almost instantly, I'm a planner. See, when things happen, I start to plan. And so I start planning for the inevitable. And I'm not sure if I'm going to win. I don't know what this fight's going to look like. And so I start planning. And I sit and I make a bunch of videos just like this, but for my children, based on their firsts. So I made a video where I tried to talk my daughter through her first heartbreak, through a wedding, you know. I even tried to give a speech that I was hoping she'd be able to play at her wedding when she was older. And for my boy, my child, my son, you know, I left him videos like how to be a man, how to never shake a man's hand sitting down, how to treat people with honesty, integrity, to be the change you want to see in the world, to try and give him strength and courage, because I wasn't going to be there to teach him those things face to face. I even did instruction videos on how to shave. I didn't always have this. I tried to give him instruction videos on how to shave, how to tie his laces, how to change the chain on a bike. And then there was big things for both of them, like anniversaries of mine and their 16th and 18th and 21st birthdays respectively. And it was hard making these videos, trying to explain to them that this is who their dad is now, and by the time they're old enough to watch this, unfortunately, if I'm not there, I'm not there. And that was hard. That was very hard. But I got through it, and I got them done. And at the time, of course, I was discerning a call to ministry, and that had to be put on pause. And I remember ringing my DDO. He won't mind me name dropping him, Tristan. And he is more than my DDO. He was my friend. And he was absolutely devastated. And that's the thing, so you have to tell people when you get cancer, you have to tell people. And my boss at the time, Brian, was an absolute hero, because of course you do worry about money. And I mean, I was paying the bills that I accrued over cancer, not medical bills, of course, this is not America, but bills on things like missed rent, bills on things like debts that couldn't be paid. I think it took me about 8 years to clear all that off. And so my boss at the time, Brian, was an absolute hero. He did so much to help. And my parish priest at the time, he was a bulwark. He was, they say, there's a phrase that people use for priests. I got it on today. But there's a phrase they use. They say, we stand in persona Christi. We stand in the person of Christ. Father Robert absolutely stood in persona Christi at that time, because he was the bulwark. He was the strength in the chaos. He walked in and he steadied the ship. And he helped Mrs. Viking Vicar, and he helped me. And he made sure that I kept coming to church, not because they needed a bum and a seat, but because he knew at that moment, more than any other in my life, I needed Jesus. And he was always there. They're not going to like it if any of them ever see this, but my old friendship group, they all ran. And only one of them has ever given me an explanation as to why. And one came to visit me, and he bought his new missus. Tom, if you're watching this, I love you, bro. And I always have. I always will. You don't realise quite how lonely a place it can be. And so I go for my tests in the Royal Orthopaedic, and in the Royal Orthopaedic, they take samples from me, and they ring me after they've taken these samples. And the doctor, I had two consultants, and the one was a Nigerian gent, and he was an absolute rock star. I love him. Even now, I love him. And the other one, I think he was Filipino. Again, he was wonderful. They were an awesome double act. You could see there was a real genuine friendship, a real genuine love, and a real genuine camaraderie between the two. They were more than just colleagues. And had biopsies taken from both. Again, two-pronged attack. And I get a call a few days later saying, it's not cancer. It's not cancerous. We've tested the biopsies. It's all good. It's all good. So we call Father Robert and we tell him, we say, guess what? It's not cancer. And he gives praise and thanks. And we even actually had the subject of our following Sunday service was giving thanks to God. And, we gave thanks that I was safe, that it had been a lucky escape. And I never felt so surrounded by good, honest, authentic Christian love, And then a few days later, I get a call from the hospital again. Really sorry. Those first results were wrong, and you have actually got cancer. We're going to schedule for a clinic appointment to talk about treatment when you can come in. Having to go back and tell my parents, having to go back and tell Father Robert, having to go back and tell so many people that had been praying for me, even people that weren't religious. I actually had one or two that took up prayer just for me. I had to go back and tell all of them, look, I'm really sorry, but it actually is cancer. Again, just when I thought I'd been given a lifeline, just when the colour had started to come back into the world, then again, it's all gone, drained away, all over again. And I'm sitting there, and again, I start planning a future for my family without me. I give Mrs. Viking Vicar the chance to walk away free. I say to her, look, I don't know how this is going to go. I could end up being some sort of chemo-filled body on a bed. You don't have to stay married to that. You can go now, and I will not fight you. I will not blame you. There will be no judgment given. I will let you go. And I gave her a free pass out. It took a while for the black eye to go down. No, she didn't hit me. But her reaction was very strong. She was going nowhere. Father Robert, again, stepped straight back into that role. He stepped straight back into that strong in persona Christi role. Indeed, it's him that I hold as my hero in terms of walking into a pastoral situation. Even now, I'm coming up on 3 years ministry, ordained ministry, and even now, be it a funeral visit, be it a sickness visit, be it a hospital visit, I walk in persona Christi, as Father Robert taught me, by his example. And so Father Robert says to me, right, you know what? We're gonna lay the hands on the sick, and this is where the testimony comes in. We're gonna lay hands on the sick. We're gonna come over and we're gonna pray for you. We're gonna oil you, and we're gonna pray for you, and we're gonna put hands on you. And at the time, we had a wonderful friend and colleague of mine now, who was a curate then. Father Gareth came with him. Father Gareth is now actually a very trusted colleague and a bit of a mentor. Don't tell him I said that. I'm joking. But no, he is. He's a trusted colleague and a valued friend. And even now, the advice he gives absolutely matters to me. When Gareth speaks, I listen. At the time, he was a curate. And I remember it was a late evening. My children were both in bed. Again, they're only little. 4 and 1, I think, at this point. They're only little. And I've already had a couple of appointments, preliminary appointments. We've decided to go for surgery straight away. Not amputation. Of course, if it's spread, they're going to have to take my leg. But we'll get to that in a minute. And so, Father Gareth and Father Robert come over to the house, and they've got prayers with them. And, of course, if anyone's ever done an anointing or been to an anointing, you'll know what I mean. They stand around me and they place hands on me with Mrs. Viking Vicar, and they put their hands on me and they start to pray. And Father Robert anoints my hand, and my head. And he places his hands on my head, and he starts to pray. And this is the testimony. This is the important bit, okay? As Father Robert placed his hands upon my head, all of a sudden everything started to go quiet. Everything. It was like someone was turning a radio down on the sound in the world. Down, slowly but surely. I can hear his voice. I could hear him praying down. Shortly. I can hear Father Gareth praying down. Slowly. I can hear Mrs. Viking Vicar sat next to me praying, going down. I can feel Robert's hands on me, but nobody else's. More and more the sound starts to go down until I can hear nothing. I'd gone deaf before. Years ago I'd gone deaf through an ear infection. It wasn't that. I could hear nothing. I was stone deaf. I couldn't even hear myself breathing. I couldn't hear my own heartbeat. Nothing. I could hear nothing. And through that immense silence, and it wasn't a scary silence, this is the thing, but through that immense silence, I heard a man's voice. And it didn't really have an accent. And I maintain to this day it was the voice of God. God spoke to me, literally spoke to me. His voice cut through all the fear. His voice cut through all the worry about me being alive or not in 10 years' time. His voice cut through the worry of, am I going to live long enough to see my children grow up? That voice, God's voice, cut through it all. And you know what he said? One simple phrase. And it stayed with me. This is the entire core of my ministry. if I do nothing else with the 30 years I've got in the game, I'm going to tell people this. God said this to me, and I'm directly quoting, "It'll be all right, son." That was it. That was it. Slowly but surely, the sound started to come back, and I could hear them doing the Lord's Prayer. I can even remember the bit they were on. I remember the sound coming back, and I remember the Lord's Prayer coming back to my ears. But for just that moment, everything stopped. They were still moving, if you know what I mean, but audio-wise, I couldn't hear anything. I'd been deaf before. It wasn't like that. It was stone deaf. No sound whatsoever. And this voice cut over it all. "It'll be all right, son." And that moment, I believed. And after that, no matter what came at me, and trust me, a lot came at me, we'll go into that shortly. A lot came at me after that. And there was never a doubt in my mind. Like I said before, my doctor said if the cancer had spread, they were going to take my leg. That wasn't going to happen. I knew it wasn't going to happen. When I was coming to in recovery after my op, I remember the one of the two, the double act, the Filipino doctor, he came in and he hugged me and said, "We got it all, we got it all." And I knew they got it all. After my operation, I almost died. I had double pneumonia in each lung, and I had double PE, so that's a lot of blood clots. I woke up one morning about 3 a.m. and felt like I was underwater. I was in agony. I couldn't breathe. I remember slapping Mrs. Viking Vicar awake, saying, "Help me, help me." Bright blue. And blue lighted all the way down to hospital. Fed blood thinners, fed antibiotics, all sorts. I couldn't move. I could never get comfortable. And even in all of that, and I was in there for a week and a half, I think, all of that, I knew it was going to be all right. Even when, I never forget, there was a World Cup on, and I was in a bay, and a room came up with a telly in it, and I remember they moved me into it literally as the first ball of the World Cup kicked off, and I knew that was going to happen. Because it was something that I wanted at that time, and I knew God was not going to let me down. "It'll be all right, son." And now, whether it be letting you watch a football match or whether it be saving your life from cancer, same thing. I heard his voice. And that's my testimony. In 10 years, having clinics, at one point when I first had the operation done, I was in and out of that clinic every fortnight when it was first done. Then it went to every 6 weeks. Then it went to monthly. And then it went to 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, yearly. And every single time I walked into that hospital for my scan, knowing in my core, knowing that I was all right, that it was going to be all right. I'm not invincible by any stretch. I know I'm not. I've got an expiry date. We all have. One day everything dies. But it wasn't my time. And when I heard his voice say, "It'll be all right, son," I can't begin to talk to you about the love that was in that voice, the strength that was in that voice. I can't begin to put into words what it means to hear that. I can't begin to express how that voice changed everything. I can't begin to put it into words. But there it is. That's my testimony. That's how God reached into my life. More ways than one. And He's done it many times before and many times since. But that's the one I share with everybody. Because that's the one that's most important to me. Because that's the one that set me up for this ministry. That's the one that gave me this. And so, my friends, whatever you're going through, wherever you are, remember this. It'll be all right. That's my testimony. That's my message. That's what I have for you. It'll be all right. Thank you so much for listening to this, my friends, and I hope it's helped. God bless you, and take care.